Welcome, EJ.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
What pronouns do you accept or use?
They, them.
Okay.
Theirs. Yeah.
Is there any time that you would use any other pronouns?
No.
Okay. Can you elaborate on your journey? You said that it's been 8 years, right?
Yeah.
8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on your journey to using they, them pronouns?
Sure. I've been out as a queer person for about 22 years. I came out when I was 15. I think that just exploring identities, having language for identities, and especially gender identity, is newer. But I worked on LGBTQ non-discrimination campaigns for a while, and that started in around 2009. Before that, I was a performance poet. Did a lot of things around gender identity, but there wasn't pronouns. People weren't really talking about using any pronouns outside of the binary. So working on campaigns for non-discrimination, I met other folks who used other pronouns that weren't binary. And so I thought, I kind of had to oscillate between these two binaries. Like, what do I pick? Neither feels right. And so as soon as I, met other folks that were using they, them, I'm like, oh, there you go. Like, there's a word for me. It makes sense.
Yeah. Can you give a specific example of a time that you were either gendered correctly or incorrectly and how it made you feel?
Yeah, I think that probably the best example of that would be new jobs, because I think that relates for a lot of folks, especially non-binary folks, going in like, what do I wear to this interview? Are they going to see me or hear me? Can I be myself? You're trying to be your most confident self, and yet a lot of the time you're not seen. And I would say that there were, especially even over the last 10 years, like really specific first meetings in an interview with like rooms full of people where I would be misgendered, and allowing that to happen because you're in that room where you're supposed to, you're showcasing your skill set, not automatically requiring people to see you, which is what it feels like. So when I interviewed at Family Tree Clinic for this role, with 9 people around the table, where pronouns were part of their introduction that everyone gave their own, and then asking that of me, that was an automatic release of anxiety and tension, and I knew that I could show up confidently as my whole self without that kind of inner monologue of, okay, like I don't get to all be here.
Your name, have you always gone by EJ?
Well, when I was 5, my grandpa started to call me EJ. And there was definitely a time when I came out that I went through a lot of discrimination and bullying. So I kind of moved and veered towards a more feminine name that aligned with my name at birth. And I would say it's been about 10 years that I went back to EJ.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I legally changed my name to EJ.
Okay. So you said that you started using they, them pronouns around that time as well. Mm-hmm. So is there a direct connection to that?
Yeah, there's a direct connection. I would say that it was being able to kind of just validate my identity and be who I am. It made more sense.
Would there ever be a time that you would be upset if someone asked your pronouns?
No, I think that's like the best, most respectful question someone can ask.
How much responsibility do you think should be put on others to ask what your pronouns are, mm-hmm. or for you to tell others what your pronouns are?
Well, I mean, as a genderqueer, non-binary person who's been training people for a good decade on queer identities, I think that it's always the job of the person with more power. The most marginalized and oppressed folks need to be advocated for, with ally help and ally leadership. And so I think that asking someone to always remind when they're already, in a position of, being othered, it's so helpful if there are people to ask and support.
You said marginalized and othered. I have
Yeah.
not heard the word othered before. Can you tell me more about what that means and possibly an instance where you have felt othered?
Just in the everyday experience of someone who doesn't identify in a binary identity, since that is what we're talking about today. I mean, the simplest thing that we see all the time, bathrooms, right? Like if there is only two choices and they're both binary, you are the other. Like there's not a place for you. You have to pick.
Okay.
So I would say it's a simple one that people can understand.
In what ways do you express your gender, and in what ways do other people validate your gender?
I mean, for sure, every time we get up in the morning, everybody expresses their gender. For me, it's, in the clothes I pick. Definitely gone through phases of the more comfortable I feel with my own identity, the more fluid I feel in my ability to explore, like, what is masculine, what is feminine, what is that space in between or all the way outside of that. So it depends on over time, just feeling super comfortable with who I am. I explore that with clothes or with like my motorcycle or, like anything that I choose, the way that I want to be in the world, especially kind of pushing on some of those spaces that are traditionally acceptable for, what is man and woman.
When I ask the question of how you express your gender,
Yeah.
is that a different question to ask someone who uses they, them pronouns and is non-binary in that way? Because ultimately I'm asking how do you express yourself to everyone.
Yeah.
But when I'm saying your gender, is that do you think that that's a harder question for someone who is non-binary and only uses they, them pronouns? Do you think it's harder for them to answer that question, or for you
That's
to answer that
interesting.
question?
I mean, I could look back, like 12 years ago answering that question, before I really had a concept or understanding or like internal narrative about what being non-binary was. That would have been a harder question. Well, it might have been an easier question because I would have only been able to probably share like physical attributes or ways that I cut my hair or ways, things that I wore, or my identity is definitely fully, rooted in being a non-binary human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You talked about bathrooms.
Yeah.
You touched on that a little bit. With the current conversation of transgender people in bathrooms, do you have anything to say or a specific example of something you've experienced that could make other people think more personally on the issue?
Almost 20 years ago was the first time I was literally chased into a public restroom, like at a theater, like, you're in the wrong bathroom, like by security, like just yelling and forcing me out. And having to like prove body parts always felt like the only way to be like, this is my bathroom. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Can you give everyone listening an idea of what you do for work, the interactions you might have, any examples of things that you have helped with?
I am the clinic director at Family Tree Clinic, and there 53% of our patients identify as LGBTQ, and I manage the hormone care program as well, which is an informed consent model. So we have somewhere around 300 trans hormone care patients, folks identifying as non-binary, genderqueer, trans men, trans women. And, it's a place where also a lot of queer and non-binary folks work, and trans folks and straight allies, who do incredibly intentional work to create inclusive space for all folks. So pretty much all day, that's what we're thinking about and doing and working towards.
Okay. If you had to list 10 things in your life that you think about the most or are the most important to you, where would your gender identity fit in?
That's interesting. I mean, the work that I do, I'm literally like advocating for trans folks all day. So it's hard to remove, and my own identity in the world, everywhere you look, there's binary identities or someone's misgendering me. So, I mean, it would definitely fit up there towards one of the more important things because it's always on my mind. I guess non-binary folks don't necessarily have the luxury for it not to be.
Mm-hmm. What message or advice might you have for youth and or parents who have youth who are questioning their gender identity?
Just to be you, whatever that is, whatever other people have to say about it, just listen to yourself and your heart. And I would tell parents to do the same. Really be curious and listen, and support, especially with gender identity, as we grow and learn about ourselves and in the relationship we have with the world around us. We grow and we learn more language and we learn how to really be okay. Having that start with support and love is essential for folks to really be able to self-actualize and get to experience the world as their full selves.